Welcome back to another video within my survival build world, and today I am excited to be back because my summer busy real life is officially over and I can finally put my time back into making videos. And what better way to get back into it than by getting started with a fat terraining job around my Mechanist factory that I built a couple of episodes ago. I am doing this video as another time-lapse commentary style because I think it is just the best way to show off the process here. Like, if I just did my standard video style thing, it would be 2 minutes long. But I can really talk about my work here and other random junk nobody cares about, which is fun. So right now you're watching me start by getting a solid layout in, essentially guidelines, which the whole concept I have in mind is built around this windy path which will eventually reach where I left off in the village. It is such an important step for building up custom terrain to have at least a small vision of what you want, and with a little framework it's a lot easier to be motivated and have ideas to build off of. And what you see here is pretty much the extent of the vision I had, which goes on to inspire other parts, which right now I figured the shape I created within the winding path looked right for a little pond of sorts. So that's what I did. With a little sunken terrain thing, we now have a pond, which brings me to what my challenge for this terrain was, which is what I struggle with as a natural terrain builder. That being, I believe, I do a pretty bad job at making my terrain feel natural, as in a real life landscape is not going to be the same kind of cliff all around, or simply a small incline all throughout. Hard to explain, but I want to do a much better job at making variation in my terrain, where, yeah, it might be a lot of dirt mounds, but you can see there's also a few points of steepness, which turns into stone. Just changing it up a little bit and creating variations improves terrain so much, and I am very happy with the way I went about that with the cliffs and the pond and the hills. Next challenge, I wanted to expand on my goal I made last episode on this build, which is to introduce a lot of height variation to the build itself, which I highly recommend you watch that episode. I talk a lot about my motivation and inspiration for this build there, and I am really excited to show off what I am doing with this thing. And I believe I mentioned wanting it to feel like I didn't just build this building on a flat plane, you know? And what I am doing here is making that goal a little better by removing the flat plane, which then brought me to another idea to reduce flatness by introducing a much smaller pond at the top, which naturally gives the idea to put in a connecting waterfall. And you'll see in a second that inspires another piece, which is to add another waterfall at the bottom, which leads to building a river that will connect to a larger, naturally generated river at the end. This terraining is a lot of fun for me though, and I'm glad my last terrain time-lapse video was received very well because it's the first video on this channel that was unique. And now I have a great option to deliver this style of build that I would have previously avoided on this channel, which is also where my inspiration partially lies currently. I'm pretty thankful I could take a bit of time away from building over the summer. I said that I wanted to keep up my uploads whilst being super busy, but for a channel that is all about being creative and doing something new creatively every episode, that's a one-way ticket to burning out. So taking a step away and coming back with a medium to large size scope project felt really good. I feel refreshed, but I also have a problem. I still spent my time away thinking about what's next, what I want to build, what is inspiring me, and right now my inspiration is running dry. Usually I pull inspiration from games I'm playing or movies and TV that I'm watching, but nothing's been sticking. I think that might be a product of not having much to work off of. Like, I played and finished Donkey Kong Bonanza, for example, and thoroughly enjoyed that, but there's not a lot of ideas to latch onto. It's a very lightly themed sandbox. I've been rewatching Daredevil, and while New York City itself plays a big part in that series, the actual scenery itself used in the show isn't very inspirational. I've been really enjoying Deadlock, a new Valve game that hasn't even actually been announced yet, so if you have no idea what I'm talking about, look it up. It's a really cool game that is based around an occultist themed New York City. It's a fantastic theme that has me really intrigued, but I'm not sure if it's something I can incorporate into my inspiration yet, so it's kind of a dead end. One big theme that is on my mind right now is a horror, human-sized creature, fear kind of thing, like a Dracula or Freddy Krueger kind of thing. But that's not something I feel is particularly Minecraft translatable, or at least for my skill set and what I want in this world. I've mentioned that I want to create a feel of horror and fear in this area I'm building in right now, but I don't really know how to do that. I don't know if it's possible to do that, especially in the vanilla context. It's something I'm going to keep thinking about, though. It sounds very interesting to work with. Big creature monster building is also a potential option here that I would love to work on, but I don't have an idea to bring in a creature build in this area or even anywhere in my whole world that will fit in naturally or be interesting right now. I don't know, the rest of my inspiration lies pretty solely on natural terrain work, but even that's a rather finite build option. At some point, pretty quickly, I need to build more structures to be able to terrain around, and I really don't want to dedicate my next 5 videos to terrains. That would be stupid, and these things take a lot of energy and time to build. They're a lot of fun, so don't be surprised if I do have a lot of terrain work coming up, but as for now, after this video, I have no idea what's next on this channel. I think it's probably time to step out of the survival build world comfort zone and do something different. Next for the build though is a pretty big step for the visual identity of this terrain, which really helped introduce more grandness and allure to the portrait view of the entire project, which is this steep cliff that runs along the river I am connecting to the generated river. I genuinely have no idea where this thing came from in my mind, but I think it does so much for the view and is such a fresh and unique piece of terrain that I am so happy about. At this point, there's a lot more filling in of grass, dirt, and stone, so here comes more random rambling. I hope this video style is interesting to you all watching. There's something so satisfying about watching these build time lapses, and with a little bit of music and a chill conversation, I think this makes for some real solid secondary monitor content, which I personally really enjoy because I pretty much always have a second monitor video playing while I build in this game. If not that, I have some music playing at higher volumes than I should have it at. Let me know if you got this on a second monitor though while doing something else. Honestly, I strive to be a perfect second monitor channel. This video style is actually inspired by a YouTube series I used to watch by Attacking Toucans a long time ago now actually, where he would commentate over a Planet Coaster build time-lapse, which I actually remember him saying that his time-lapse videos were inspired by a different Minecraft time-lapse series of sorts a long time ago. I don't recall who that was by, nor did I ever actually check it out, but it's kind of full circle here. Honestly, that might be a good, fun video to make, starting a fresh Planet Coaster 2 park. I haven't bought that game yet, despite being super excited for it, because I suppose it didn't launch in a great state, but it sounds like it's a much better game right now, and that would definitely scratch an itch because I thoroughly enjoy those park builder games. Yeah, keep an eye out for that. I definitely won't do a Planet Coaster time-lapse video because for whatever reason I am just awful at making cool visual designs in that game, but there's totally entertainment value somewhere in watching me be trash at building a theme park. At this point, I should be about wrapping up the bulk of the boring terrain. That's the part that really stinks and takes all the time. I personally enjoy sitting back and doing it, but I understand if not. It's such an essential step to having a completed cool terrain, but yeah, it can definitely really eat the energy. Next big step in the terrain though is actually starting to make it a real thing. First by putting in the path, and once I get that path fully installed, I'll be able to use it as sort of an anchor for painting the terrain, adding color, texturing, making it look way better than it does right now. The path is simple, same andesite, cobblestone, stone texture I use for the rest of the village. I just had to connect it properly to the rest of the village, and already I feel it does a good job at making this whole terraining feel a lot better. Gives a much better idea why I built the hill the way I did. And now you see me kind of blending it into the terrain. I kind of made the mistake of doing slabs slapped onto the top of the grass instead of the sunken in naturally thing I did originally. You can see on the right there. But I think I made the mistake work with this lip thing I threw together. It looks kind of weird, but it's fine. But now is time to work on the most important step of this whole project, which is painting over it, making this project look a lot cooler and detailed than a typical generated terrain with block variation and colors. I have no idea why the replay broke right here, making me stand there while the blocks magically place around me for a second here, but I started with all the water base points because the water logically has a lot of influence on nearby ground, whether it's dampness or signs of water level, muddiness, I don't know, stuff you see around water. I use deep slate as a real damp rock texture and tuff as a quite less but still wet rock texture. And then that podzol coarse dirt mix for that foresty waterside mud and damp sticks feel, and the tuff around the grass to feel a little more pebbly. All the stuff to make it all feel like there's water that's moving and genuinely affecting and interacting with its environment. Some foresty trees will also really help, but that's an addition for later. I wanted to get the actual water installed now to make sure the feel I'm going for is still correct once the water's flowing, while I texture the top pond since I'm up there already. There's a ton of small additions I make throughout, like little bits of moss, then stone slabs to add a little rockiness, terrain variation. Very small details that add a lot. I do think I will go back and retexture the bottom of the pond. The mud looks pretty good at the bottom, but the deep slate is a bit too over textured in the water and therefore a bit repetitive in the way I have laid out the underwater deep slate. It's just not right. But also it might be an issue from the top-down view because I don't remember thinking it's a problem when looking at it from layer view. That was just more of the same stretched into river form, which gave me a lot more room to blend colors and textures, so maybe I'm just being stupid about the deep slate, I don't know. I guess if I blend it better up top it'll look better because I think it looks fine down here. I really like doing the texturing on the cliff here though. There's a lot more room to properly feature my coloring and texturing. And I had this funky like streaky thing going on, but being thoughtful about where realistically the rocks would be wet, so darker, was very interesting. Then you'll see in a second points where it's clear the rock is drier, but still looks like water might have flown at that point, which saying that gives me an idea to incorporate that thought more later. It's interesting. That kind of stuff is so much fun to design and think about, and I think that rocky cliff looks really nice from the portrait view that I'll show off pretty soon. Something weird that came to mind while doing this river though is that I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've actually done a proper complete custom water thing with texturing and terrain and custom water placement in this world. Kind of interesting because it is something I like to do that I have done previously, just not here in this world on a video for you all. There's so much to think about with water. It gives a good fresh perspective to work with instead of saying, all right, here's some trees, here's some rocks, whatever, boring. Different palette to work with, you know? It's a lot of fun. I think I'm going to speed up the time lapse at this point until the next point of interest comes up because I am not going to lie. I am running out of thoughts and I want to go to bed. It's kind of difficult to talk about the project when I don't really have an inspiration to point at, just a lot of dirt blocks being placed down. Scratch the thought about time-lapse terrain commentary being a good video idea. I'm kidding. I'm still learning to be a strong commentator. I'm sure, I don't know, mumbo jumbo could stretch this thing out to like a half hour or so. Hopefully the editor who is editing this in the future, who also happens to be me, sped you up to the bridges, which are an interesting thing to talk about because at this point until the end, it's primarily very small additions, small details, little changes that are being worked on. But the bridges were interesting to put together because I didn't want to touch the shape of the landscape at all. I wanted to see if I could naturally add these bridges, and that gave me these weird angled bridge shapes that took a hot minute to get right, but once I got the shape right, I think they add so much to the view and the beauty of the shot. I'm not going to lie, this terrain ended up being way more scenic than I expected. I only really wanted to do like a little windy path that's a bit rocky. The staggered waterfalls into the river and the bridges were improv'd, but they make for such a crazy shot. I am incredibly happy with what I did with this thing. But yeah, for final touches, just some light posts, a little more texturing, then a splash of color with some flowers, tall grass, ferns, pretty much the colors and decor that I like to use in the main village, which helps tie the two spaces together a little bit. And a bunch of bone meal to make the boring bit a tiny bit less boring. And that's everything I did for this little bit of terraining. I'm going to hop onto the server now to show off the build a little better, then give some final thoughts. See you in a second. Thanks, Time Optimist Shrimp. Hi, this is Shrimp over a month later. Why has it been over a month since I recorded that? I'll tell you in a minute. First, let's look at the terrain from a real in-game perspective instead of that freaky, floaty camera stuff. This is that portrait view I mentioned a couple times in the time lapse. I will note, I think I will be slightly redoing the hill right here to make the view a little better, because if we step just over here, you can see that waterfall and bridge view with the cliff that I love. So yeah, I need to literally move a mountain. More like a small hill, but the metaphor joke works better. Anyways, I have continued adding more little details and changes since the time-lapse, but pretty much everything as you saw in the time-lapse is still intact. Some of the changes I mentioned in the time-lapse I am going to do, but I haven't gotten around to it. I really like what I did here though, and I hope you can appreciate what thorough and thoughtful, totally custom terrain work can achieve. There's still a lot to get done, of course. This is technically a quarter of the work done, but it is the most I will have to do compared to the other bits I will do in the future, that you'll hopefully see soon. Now, why the delay? Basically, the dry inspiration thing was a lot worse of a problem than I expected. I couldn't really come up with anything. If I want this channel to do well, I need to get the ball rolling on videos again for the algorithm, and that means I need to have material to quickly follow up this video with. From what I've seen, the third video after a long delay is the one YouTube likes to actually push out to feeds, with the first couple kinda dying. So after this one, I got one more filler-ish video to take the hit from the algorithm. But I hope if you do watch this video and get this far that you'll follow along, because I have something really cool that I'm super excited to share coming up. Hence me making this segment for this video to finally be uploaded. That's all I got for you today though. This video's kinda weird, so if you did make it this far, I hope you enjoyed. Please consider leaving feedback below so that I may improve until I'm big enough to absorb the other megalithic YouTube channels. Oh, and join the Social Experiment Discord. Thanks for watching, and I will see you a lot sooner than later.